In your book, you argue that love, falling in love, is biologically natural, but sustaining love is not as natural.
Yes.
What do you mean by that?
Yes. Falling in love is not biologically natural because of what I was mentioning before about the biologically you suspect, fear an enemy, and then you build up your defenses in response to the enemy, and that's biologically natural, is to be defensive. And sustaining love is not biologically natural because when you're defensive, you is in response to a concern or a criticism, or you are undermining love. And what the single biggest complaint for many couples is, Dr. Farrell, I feel like I'm walking on eggshells all the time around my partner, always waiting for the right moment to say something. And then with women, they at least will be able to say those things to their women friends. With guys, we usually just keep the feelings to ourselves until we just drink instead, or or make ourselves distant instead. Sometimes in the workshops, I have a really hard time with the men being able to do this because, and it's almost always men who have previously been married, and they've learned that when I say anything that's critical of my wife, I get a punishment that's way beyond what I feel I will get as a reward for sharing the criticism. A, I don't feel heard, and B, my wife withdraws sexually. She withdraws emotionally. She's not around. She's not supportive. Everything I value in her just starts disappearing the moment I say any criticism. Therefore, I will keep my mouth shut. And we don't go out. We guys don't go out. If we're playing golf or whatever, we don't go out and talk negatively about the women in the process of doing that. It's just considered like, what's the matter with you? That's really cruel to say that type of thing about your wife. That isn't true in reverse. Women will, if one woman says that she's having a problem with her husband or a boyfriend, the other women will usually chime in and say, "Oh yeah, I have the same type of problem with my boyfriend or my husband," and the method among women will be to support her by showing commonalities that you're not alone. You're not alone, sister. We girls, we women all have that problem.
How do we maintain an appreciative relationship with somebody or something that's always around? I feel like that's one of the pitfalls of the human condition.
Well, first of all, it is a pitfall of the human condition, and I have in the Role-Mate to Soulmate book sort of what I call the 4 depleters of love, and one of those depleters is complacency. And so, you think about this, it is almost like, smile amusing. You're thinking about your first date, meet somebody at Match.com or whatever, and you're
Raya.
saying, what's that?
Raya, Hinge.
Yes, eHarmony.
eHarmony.
By the way,
J-Date.
The 2 most successful, what I've seen in my workshops, is that about 60% of the people who meet and have long-term relationships meet either on Match.com or eHarmony. And eHarmony has an extensive questionnaire that if you really fill it out honestly, the algorithm will really give you usually a good outcome. Now, it's not that these people don't get into challenging relationships, but they certainly do have a these tend to work fairly well for them. Now, you asked a question. I'm trying to think about where that question...
How do you maintain...
Oh, complacency. Yes.
Well, yes. So you were getting into that.
One of the 4 depleters of love is complacency. And so you think about you're preparing for this first date that you on Match.com or whatever, and you're thinking, well, what's the best wardrobe? If you have a friend or a girlfriend or something like that, you might check the best wardrobe out, and if not, you at least check out the mirror, your second best friend, and they then you look up makeup and the way you're holding yourself, what you're going to say, how you're going to present yourself. You're thinking about all these things, and then you get all that preparation done, and you go on your first date. And then 2 or 3 years later, you're maybe moved in with each other, and you're sort of no makeup. There's, maybe the hair could be a mess. Maybe
You've let yourself go.
You let yourself go. Yes, you've gained 30 pounds. You're that, all this type of thing, and sort of maybe not wearing pajamas around the house, but sort of things that are very sloppy. But then you change. You're going out on Saturday night. Start looking at that wardrobe again.
Mm-hmm.
For somebody else you're going to present yourself to, you're now worried about how you look. And so now, on the one hand, this is really a positive that that you can feel comfortable around this person. That's a positive. On the other hand, there's oftentimes a sort of like a little residual of like the only time you seem to care about how you look and how you present yourself, and you give your best foot to the other people rather than to me, and that can begin to make a relationship go downhill. And so that's one of the 4 depleters of love is complacency.
Yeah, the textbook example that you hear a lot about is couples that leave the door open when they go to the bathroom in the later stages of a relationship. When people post, I've seen posts in regards to that on social media, Instagram. First place I go is to the comments, and you see the polarity. Some people are like echoing exactly what you said. Well, there's a beauty in being so comfortable with another human, right? But on the other hand, some things are better left to one's private life.
Yes, exactly. You can imagine going on a first date. You bring this woman or guy back to your house, or your 2 men or whatever, and 2 women, and you say, so just a minute, I need to use the restroom, and you leave the door open, and they hear you. It's like, gee, you really prepared me for that first lovemaking.
So funny. You talk about the concept of play in your book too. That the couples that what did you say? The couples that play together stay together.
Yes, there's research showing that couples that play together stay together longer, and so examples of play together. For Liz and I, sometimes we'll just sort of be cooking or something like that, and I'll hear a little bit of music that I'm liking, and especially if it's high energy music, it's really fun to just sort of turn that music up and just forget about let the food get cold, just do some dancing together.
I like it. The Farrell's letting loose.
Yeah, letting loose. Yes, sir. Imagine.
It's adorable. Right. So that's an important part of sustaining love, I would imagine.
Yes, Liz and I have in our dining room, we have a small foosball game, and it's very fast, and it's the game is fast. We aren't, but you go back and forth, and it's really fun. And we have a ping pong deck outside, and so all those things are just ping pong, as you probably know, increases your IQ.
I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's because you're constantly having to sort of think, every second.
I've always been terrible at ping pong and any other sport. I don't know what that says about my IQ. But
that means your IQ has plenty of potential for increasing.
Yeah, so, you're right.
Talk about taking things from different angles.
Yeah. But maintaining that childhood sense of wonder whilst in a relationship, it sounds like it definitely sounds like a recipe for success. I try to be, I try to maintain that and let that suffuse everything that I do. That playfulness.
So tell me how that manifests for you.
Well, I think I definitely have a bit of a Peter Pan. There is that side to me where, whether it's through my career choices or my friends, my family, the way that I was raised, I allow play. I try to bring play into everything that it is that I'm doing. My approach towards fitness, hanging out with my friends.
Give an example.
I don't know. Do I have an example? Well, the only example that I could give is, I guess, my attitude towards play and spontaneity relative to people in my social life who are more rigid. Because I think rigidity is kind of, in a way, the antithesis to playfulness.
Absolutely.
And so a lot of my friends have a very rigid mindset about routine, habit, preferences, a very strong, set of preferences towards foods, or even maybe it's the type of girl that they're into. I've always had a much more open-minded, playful curiosity about a broad array of things, which I know still sounds vague, but in my view, that kind of embodies a more childlike mindset.
So if somebody says, I'm a vegan, would that still tap into your curiosity and tell me more? And
I'd want to know why they've chosen to be vegan.
Right. And would you want to know why they've chosen to be vegan? Like, how could you be so stupid?
Pretty much.
I felt that a little bit out of your tone of voice, right?
You must listen to my podcast. I would genuinely be curious. I would want to know, is this like a moral decision is it for moral purposes? Is it that you don't like the taste of meat? Is it because when you were 5 you had a piece of sinewy steak that you didn't enjoy, and so now you've carried that narrative that you don't like steak on with you through adulthood, which I think would be a huge shame, but I see people make decisions and choices like that all the time.
Sure.
But yeah, it would invoke in me a curiosity.
Yes. And so the keeping something young is when there's a different decision like that that somebody's made. Maybe your partner is, you really love her, but yet nevertheless she's vegetarian, let's say. And so it would be, especially when you're such an expert on the value of not being a vegetarian and other animal foods, that it would be, the challenge would be to really create that safe space for her to express her feelings about that, and without feeling judged by you or that type of thing. And at the same time, asking that she create a safe space for you to share the knowledge that you have and the experience that you've come up with and why you've moved to where you've moved to.
Yeah, my girlfriend, when we first started dating, first date I took her to a steakhouse, and she would only order like well done meat because she thought that by charring the hell out of meat you were killing off any potential pathogens, parasites, and what have you. And I informed her that the bacteria that you get on meat typically is only on the surface of the meat. You don't really have to char the hell out of meat. It's perfectly safe to. Not according to the FDA. You have to cook your meat to a certain temperature. But generally, most people enjoy a medium rare steak for a reason, and it's generally pretty safe to do so. She also didn't eat fish. She hadn't eaten sushi in years because she was afraid of parasites. Because you see these horror stories sometimes on social media of people bringing home salmon from the supermarket and seeing all kinds of, weird things. But of course, social media only surfaces the craziest possible stories. And so she was afraid for that purpose. But I informed her that when you eat sushi, particularly at a legitimate establishment, sushi restaurant, they're legally required to flash freeze fish. You're not eating any seafood that's truly raw in the United States.
I didn't actually know that. Right.
Yeah. They're not just like cutting it off the fish and serving it to you in a sushi restaurant. They have to freeze it first, and in so doing, kills off any potential parasites. You might see, the dead remains of which. I'll admit doesn't sound very appetizing of a parasite here and there, but they don't present any threat to humans. Yeah,
interesting.
Generally, there are exceptions. People are going to come after me probably for saying that, but generally it's pretty safe. It's pretty safe.
So anyway, the communication part of that is when you have somebody that comes from a totally different place, really being able to show that curiosity without sort of skepticism in one's tone, and not facilitating the curiosity as a way of getting information that I can argue with, and all of that comes through in the tone of voice. And so anyway, that's a
Are people more lonely today than in previous years, previous decades?
Yes.
Like, are we in fact seeing the epidemic of loneliness that some have talked about?
Yeah, I think we are. I think there's certainly the COVID period, the pandemic period, increased that enormously, and then we also have the. I was just we were in Del Mar yesterday, Del Mar this morning actually, and yesterday I was out by the pool, and there were a family of 6 people, and all 6 of them were just right on their iPhones. They've come there to spend family time together, and there's sort of a type of isolation that occurs when you're not having that human contact. And there's also an intellectual. You don't pick up the nuances of little tones of voice and little just movements of the body and just thousands of things that we communicate so very subtly. The way we dress, the way if I come in here like this versus come out like this, if I just say something a little bit louder, a little bit softer, all those nuances do not come through in a text, and so it really creates a type of isolation.
Yeah. It is odd. We've relegated, I think, the vast majority of our communication these days to digital devices and the like. I wonder what future generations who are essentially growing up with these technologies, how it's going to impact them and their social abilities.
Hey, if you liked that video, you need to check out this one here, and I'll see you there.